We're on.
Good morning, everybody.
Naftali, can you hear me? Naftali, he doesn't have his headphones, so he's still dominant. Anybody else on? Let's see what are the other. I want to make sure people can hear me. He's the only one on. All right, he'll tell me if he can. All right. Okay. All right. Good morning, Rabbi Smith has been detained in New York or wherever he is. Happy birthday to him today from all of us. And I neglected yesterday to start the shir because we're starting in a hurry. We learn Uzecha, certain neshamas, and for Shleimah for people. So what I say now will be for yesterday too. So Zecha Nishma is Zahava Golda Bas Baruch Benyamin, and Zevi's name was. Anybody remember Zev? The son of Zev, Ben Tzion, Salaf. Refuah Shleimah to Yegetzo Ben his mother Sarah and Feget Tzipora. That's not very good for you. You're gonna get it. All right, and anybody else who needs Refuah Shleimah. Naftali, can you hear me? Okay, so we're on. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't bring the glasses to this. Okay, we're doing the mission at the bottom of Chav Dalad Amud Beis. Machikim es hagoren kavor min ha'ir chamishim amma. One must distance a permanent granary 50 amas from a city. So this is what we're talking about, a permanent granary. It's an open air storage area for grain. All right. And because it's open, they can winnow the grain by shoveling it like with a pitchfork and tossing it into the air. So it says you shouldn't do that within 50 amas of a city. Statement. Look, first statement. Similarly, a person may not make a permanent granary within his property. Unless that granary field is surrounded on all four sides by, again, 50 amas in all directions. All right, you see that the end of Chav Daled and all of Chav Chei, this is all about the news because we're constantly be speaking about northeast, west, and south. All right. Machik min tiosab shel chavero uminiro. One must also distance a granary from his neighbor's saplings as well as from his plowed field. B'chdi shelo yazik. Far enough that the chaff that flies from the granary does not cause any damage. Now, if you might not have realized, but we gave a distance first, all right, 50 from the city, and then we later on said, but you have to keep it far enough. So things like that will pop up, and then the Gemara will discuss, the differences between the two. Put it like that. Okay, the Gemara examines the contradiction between the two cases of the Mishnah. Oh, here we go. With regard to the distance required between the granary and the neighboring property. Maishna Reisha, Maishna Sefer. What's the difference between the first case in the Mishnah that says it's only 50 and the latter case that says, or at least the implication is that a lesser distance is good enough. Abaye said, Sefer Asan Lagoran Sheino Kavua. The Sefer, the latter case, is talking about the temporary granary. All right. In other words, wasn't this permanent granary, but he temporarily, dumped his grain in that field there, a small amount of grain, to take care of it. The Gemara seeks a clarification. What's the definition of a temporary granary? Nice, you just told me one's permanent, one's temporary, but what does that mean? In actuality, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said, any granary that's so small that you don't need a shovel for winnowing its grain, that would be considered temporary. All right, and it was just there's not much grain there, just putting it out there in the sun is going to be good enough, or I guess you could just throw it up with your hands and it's just going to fall back down. We're not talking, it's a small pile. The Gemara offers another interpretation of the Mishnah. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi said, Matam Kama, the second clause of the Mishnah states the reason that the distance of 50 amas is required. My time of machiko goren kabua minaya chamishim amma. What's the reason that a permanent granary has to be at least 50 amas from the city? Kidei shelo yazik, in order that the chaff that flies from into the wind and then flies in the wind won't cause any damage. Thus, the latter clause of the Mishnah, meaning the Sefer, is not an independent ruling that represents a contradiction to the first clause, but it's rather an explanation of the Mishnah's first clause. The Gemara cites a challenge. The Gemara cites a challenge to Abai's explanation of the Mishnah. Meisvei. They challenge Abai from the following brisa. Machikin goren kavua min ha'ir chamishim amma. That's what we just said. Permanent granary must be distanced 50 amas from a city. Uv'shem shmachikin min ha'ir chamishim amma, and just as it must be distanced 50 amas from the air, kach machikin, again, we're quoting a brisa, so too it must be distanced midluav, mikishuav, umin tiosav, miniro, shechavera chamishim amma. So also you have to keep it 50 amas from the neighbor's gourds, cucumbers, saplings in the plowed field. Kidei shelo yazik, in order that the chaff, again, which would be blowing in the wind, like the song says, it's blowing in the wind, won't cause them any damage. The Brisa cites the possibility that the chaff may cause damage as the reason that the granary must be distanced 50 amas. It follows that the Mishnah should be interpreted the same way. This is well according to Rav Ashi, who indeed interpreted the Mishnah in this manner. According to Abaye, who interpreted the Mishnah differently, the Brisa poses a difficulty. Gemara has no answer, concludes kasha. The difficulty stands. Yeah, it's difficult. The Gemara now explores in what way flying chaff can be harmful to the various items mentioned in the Brisa. Again, we've made the statement when the chaff flies, it's not flying like birds or locusts or anything, it's just blowing in the wind, that it can cause damage. How does it cause damage? Bishloma, mimikshu of, umidlu of. It is well that the granary must be distanced from cucumber and gourd plants, all right? The azo afka ba'asi belibe umitzabe lay. For the chaff flies off and reaches the heart of the plant and dries it out. All right, so it's mamish, it is actually damaging. Elaminiro amai, but why must a granary be distanced from a neighbor's plowed field? There's no plants there, so why do you have to distance there? How can flying chaff cause damage to the field? Gemara answers, Amar Rabbi Abba Bazabda Bitema. Rabbi Abba Bar Zitra, so Rav Abba Bar Zabta, and some say it was Rav Abba Bar Zitra, said, Bipnei, it must be distanced because top of Chafei, Amad Aleph, Shosa, Oso, Glau, because the chaff falls onto the plow fields, and as it's decomposing, it becomes manure, and basically, too much of a good thing is no good. So in this case, it causes the field to be over-fertilized, and therefore it ruins the next crop to be planted. So the owner of the first field couldn't have said, hey, don't worry, I did good for you. I had fertilizer thrown on your field. He says, I've already fertilized my field. Don't give me any more fertilizer. That's a bunch of fertilizer. It's like enough is enough. You're destroying my field. So now we understand. So up to new Mishnah. The Mishnah continues its discussion of the enterprises that must be kept at a distance from a town because of their adverse effects, in a case due to foul odors. So it's interesting. Up until now, we've been talking the mamashus in materiality, material things, vegetation. Now we're actually going to talk about just gas. just the foul odor, how that's damaging. The Mishnah will also discuss the distance one must separate his crops from those of his neighbor because of the potential damage that might be caused to his neighbor's crops. Machikim es on the velos, one must distance animal carcasses. Where these animal carcasses come, there must have been a tanning plant nearby, and when they take the skins off to tan this and that, they end up with the carcasses of the animals, so they have to dump them somewhere. I don't know what they do with them. So those are what we're talking about. The es hakvaras and the graves, ves haborsaki, and the tannery itself. So anything that has to do essentially with tannery has to be kept 50 amas, or 50 amas from the city. So it's not to disturb the town's resident with their foul odor. And you certainly can appreciate that. I mean, whenever they redo a new roof here and they're using tar, you could be a block away. You say, what is that horrible smell? You smell things in the air, the tar. So here's from the tannery. And then it says, even at this distance, meaning 50 amas from the city, you're still not allowed to make a tannery except to the east of a town. For the east wind is gentle and not usually strong enough to carry the odor to the town. So, all right, they're saying that, not make a tannery. All right. So this is like an addition to our statement. Rabbi Kiba says, one may make a tannery on any side of a town, all right? So you can do it. Now we're assuming right now that's at 50 amas, although we're not really sure because he's not mentioning the distance here, except you can't do it on the west side, on the ma'arav of the town. Why? Oh, it says here, and we're talking, and he says, and you have to keep it 50 amas from the town. And he says, he's continuing, you have to distance a flax pool from vegetables, there's accretion and leaks from onions, there's a and mustard plants from the bees of his neighbor. We had the case before. Rabbi Yossi matirin b'chado. Rabbi Yossi permitted planting the mustard plants close by the threatening property in the case of the mustard plants. And again, we had learned that before. The Gemara. So the Gemara now is going to analyze what's going on, that why Rabbi Akiva said you can put the tannery on any side of the town except for the west side. No, like west side of Chicago or West Bronx, I don't know. One must locate it at least 50 amas away. Naftali, still with me? Okay, I got thumbs up. Ibailahu, they inquired, Rabbi Akiva, how did Rabbi Akiva mean this? Did he mean one may make it on any side of the town and place it close by? So when he added the in the sefer, it had to be 50 away. Was Rabbi Akiva saying that you can do it on north, south, and east? All right, but if you're going to do it on the west, it must be on the west 50 away, or I wonder this, whether it's about the must for the town in order to allow it to make, or Dilmoa perhaps. Right, Akiva said, or did Rabbi Akiva mean that north, east, and south all have to be 50 amma, and west you're not allowed to do it at all? It's totally excluded because it wasn't totally clear where the comma was. Let's eat, kids. Right, that's what Rabbi would say. All right, where exactly the 50 ammas was including all four sides, but you couldn't do the west side at all, or was it saying you can? The 50 ammas is only on the west side. Where you can't do it at all. So what's the answer? Tashma. So Gemara is going to resolve this by bringing in Bryce. Okay, give me a moment. Moshe, you with me?
Absolutely.
Okay. Come learn the proof from the following. The Tanya from Rabbi was taught Rabbi Kiva Omer Lachorach, who was a Marchik Hamisha Mama. One may make a tannery on any side of town, but it's got to be at least 50 amas. Chutz mimarava, Dana was a co-equal, except on the west side, you can't make it at all. So it seems from this brisa, that would be where Rabbi Kiva held in our Mishnah. But look how it ends. B'nei shehi tadera, because it is constant. So now the Gemara is going to want to understand what's constant on the west side, right? The Gemara investigates the meaning of this last statement. Amalei Rava Nachman Maitadira. So Rava asked Rav Nachman, what does this mean, constant? Ilema Tadira Baruchas. If you mean the winds from the west are always constant. All right, so I can understand that's a constant breeze from the west. You certainly don't want the tannery on the west side. It's always going to be blowing the smell into the town. All right. But Rav Chanan Bar Abba said in the name of Rav, Abba Ruchas Minishpas Bako Yam. 4 winds blow every day. What do you mean the west is constant? There's always 4 winds blowing. Ruchsfanas in Kulan, and the north wind blows with all of them. All right? If it wasn't so, and if it wasn't for this, the world wouldn't survive 1 hour. In other words, it's necessary for all winds to blow, all right, for that celestial circulation to happen the way Hashem designed it in order for the world to exist. Ruach drum is kashamikulan, and the harshest wind is the south wind. V'im lema beinetz shema adima and shema mida. Thank you. And if it were not for the angel Ben Nates, all right, who blocks the machrebes as haolam, it would destroy the world. All right. In other words, it's saying that the south wind is the harshest, and what protects us is Ben Nates. And it's interesting because the monsoons come from the south, and they're totally destructive. So, I looked up like the winds here, and some of what it says is kind of the way the winds are, at least the way we understand it now in the Mideast. I went into ChatGPT and asked, I can't pull it out because it's on my phone, describe to me what the winds in the Middle East. And they gave me each wind and what it did. And it was pretty much smack on what the Gemara says. But take that with a grain of salt, because Daf Beis is talking about celestial and astronomy and meteorology that makes no sense at all to us science-wise. So obviously there's further meanings in these things, or we'll learn so. Shnei so it says, quoting the verse, Abibinascha Yavera Nates Yifras Knafav Leseman. Is it from your wisdom that the Nates extends its limbs and spreads its wings to the south? We see from the first part of Rav's statement that the wind which blows constantly is a north wind. So if the wind that blows constantly is a north wind and not the west wind, then what does Tadira mean, which we thought meant constant for the west wind? Thus, Rab Kiva, who speaks in the Brisa of the west as being constant, can't be referring to constancy of the wind. Must mean something else. The Gemara therefore advances another explanation. Elamai Tadira. So what does Tadira mean? Tadira b'Shechina. That's the constant direction of the Shechina. And obviously, that's going to right away raise a question, because isn't the Shechina, as it says in Tanya, everywhere, and not just in one place. It's therefore improper to locate a tannery in that direction, according to this answer. All right, statement. So now, the Gemara quotes a statement of Yoshua ben Levi to support the contention that the designated direction of the Shechina is to the west. Now, remember, when we say that Hashem, the Shechina was in the nowadays in Dalalamas of Torah, in the time of Beis Hamikdash, was in the Kodesh Kodashim. that doesn't exclude, as Tanya explains, that your Shekhinah is not everywhere. It's just that's the main. It's like the brain of the rest of the body. It's the Naftali. Help me with the word. It's the the home. It's the source. The source, the home. All right, we know what we're talking. In other words, we're not excluding elsewhere. We're just saying that the major concentration, if you can so say, concentration of spirit is in one place. That's it. Or maybe to us, B'nai Adam, that's where we look. We have to look somewhere. So we look to there. All right. Dama Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said, "Bo v'nachzik tova l'avasenu." Come, let's show gratitude to our forefathers, meaning the men of the great assembly, Anshe Knesset Hagedola, Shadil Mekom Tefillah, who gave us a place where we should daven to, made known to the place the proper direction of prayer. Dirsiv, for it is written, Utzva Shana Lecham Mishtachavim, and the heavenly legions bow to you. The sun, the moon, and the stars, they rise in the east, and they bow towards the west. As they said, since they are bowing towards Hashem, we see the direction designated from the Shekhinah is the west. So I know certain people right now are saying, well, wait a minute, I daven to the east. What are you telling me that the Shekhinah is to the west? It's throwing me off. Rabbi Yaakov takes this from Rabbi Yeshua and Levi's proof. Masif Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Rav Acha bar Yaakov challenged this interpretation of the motion of the heavenly bodies. Perhaps the motion of the sun and the moon is like the motion of the servant who receives a portion from his master. All right. So the servant, he gets his more pleats, he gets his portion, and then he takes his steps backwards. It's just like we step away in Shemona Esrei. It's like when we leave the Aron Kodesh, we step away backwards. So even though we're going west, we're really bowing to the east. So even though using the term westward, like westward ho, all right, we're really meaning to the east, and because that's where we hold the Shekhinah is, all right? Does the bowing movements of the heavenly bodies while moving west would indicate that the Shekhinah is in the east? Okay, weiter, further. Kasha, this is indeed a difficulty. The Gemara now quotes other opinions as to the direction of the Shekhinah. Well, I'm not really surprised we're having these questions because the Shekhinah is everywhere, all right? So they're going to ask the question. Let's see. Rav Oshia Sabra Shekhinah B'chomakam. Yeah, Rav Oshia holds that Shekhinah is all directions equally, as we see from the following statement. The Amar Rav Oshaya, the Rav Oshaya says, what's the meaning of that which we not to Hashem levadcha at asita es hashmayim begomer? You God, you are alone, you made the heavens, etc. Rav Oshaya explained, shluchecha lo b'shluchei basar v'dam. Your messengers, they're not messengers of flesh and blood. Shluchei basar v'dam mimkamam umimishtalchim l'shem machshirim l'shlichosam. All right, when a regular man sends a shaliach, all right, they go to the place where they were sent, they do the mission there, and they come back to report exactly what happened in the other place. Aval shluchecha, but your messengers, they're unique. L'makam shemishtalchim, to the place to which they're sent. Misham machsirin shlichosam. From there they report their mission, for the Shekhinah is in all places. Meaning, if Hashem sends an angel to go do a job in Stum, all right, then he gets the report from Stum. He doesn't have to wait for the Malach to come all the way back and tell him what happened in Stum, or the three Malachim. You know, he gets the report right then and there, which shows you that Hashem is everywhere. So why you start off at the beginning? Tell me that Shekhinah is in the west, or Shekhinah is in the east, Hashem is everywhere. I like that. Okay, Rav Oshia demonstrates this from the following verse. Shnema, as it states, Hatishalach barakim v'yechov yamu lecha hinenu. Can you send forth lightning bolts that they will go and say to you, behold, we are here? Shaykh says, Yavo v'yamu lo nemor. It does not say they, the bolts, will come and say, which would have implied that they will return to their point of to their departure point. Rather, it says they will go and say, which implies they report at their destination. It's interesting because actually you think about in the Florida sky, we see lightning bolts all the time, and then you hear the noise. It's not like you see the lightning bolt that goes down to the ground, and then with Florida is the capital of lightning. I don't know if it's in the world, but certainly the United States, right? It doesn't come back here, thank God, the lightning bolt to say, guess what? Hashem sent the lightning bolt, all right? Everything happens over there. You happen to hear the noise here because the noise travels. So rather, it'll go and say, which implies that they reported their destination to Hashem. That's another example to show us that the Shechina is everywhere. Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere. All right. Up, down, right. What? We should. That's why I saw, but you didn't join in. And right now, song is going to be ringing your ears the whole day. And Rabbi Yishmael too holds that the Shechina is in all directions. The Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael for a brisa of the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael has taught. How do we know that Shechina is in all places? Now we can bring another pasuk. Behold, the angel who spoke with me came forth from God's presence. And another angel came forth from God's presence towards him. All right. So it's not saying the next angel came after him. It's saying like one angel came this way and then the other angel came to meet him from another direction. And who's sending the angels? Hashem. All right. It doesn't say this verse following the first, which would have happened when he emerged from the same place as the first. Right, the verse means second angel came towards the first from the opposite direction, although they were both coming from Hashem's presence. Melamed, so we learned Shechina b'chol makom. Again, another proof that Shechina is everywhere. The Gemara yet quotes another concurring opinion. So this, I think, is going to be the fourth opinion. Am I putting you to sleep? Okay. Rav Sheshet too holds that the Shechina is in all places. Damalei Rav Sheshes Lishmaya. Rav Sheshes said to his attendant, Rav Sheshes was blind, like Rav Yosef. All right, so he says to his attendant, stand me up. I need to daven Shemona Esrei. I need to daven in any direction except east. So the first thing he say, wait a minute, we face east. Why would he say to his attendant, don't point me towards east? And the reason, so it's going to tell you now in the Gemara, and the reason I do not wish to face east is not because the Shechina is not present there, because certainly the Shechina is there. El mishum demaro mine, but rather the heretics instruct that one pray to that side east. All right, because the heretics put such emphasis on you must face east. It's almost like idolatry. They're saying, oh, you can't play anywhere else but east. Here, limiting the Shechina to just east. So Rav Sheshes didn't want to lend credence to their heresy. So that's why he said, put me anywhere but east. All right? We're okay?
It's because they were praying to the sun, I think. That's what comments say here.
Oh, okay. I don't have time to look at the comments, but thank you, Daniel. All right. From his, if everyone heard that, Daniel said, and the commentary mentions because the heretics would pray to the east, to the sun, and that's why they said that.
I read that it was because the direction of prayer was a big deal to the early Christians, and he didn't want to be doing the same thing that they did.
Okay. Again, whatever it is, I like that. And we're going to learn the Gemara that being a little bit off from the east might be to your advantage. It's interesting, sometimes in the morning, I'm walking by mates on the boardwalk up in Hollywood where there's no one around. And the few people I'll see on the beach are these people who are meditating towards the ocean, waiting for sunrise. Again, those people, they're looking to the sun and to the east too. So I mean that's a modern day example, at least of what I see of people outside of us that face east. Let me ask them, when the Arabs do 5 times a day their prayers, they also face east because it's Mecca, right? Or
It's interesting that they initially face towards Jerusalem,
yeah,
like we do. But then when Muhammad soured on the Jews, they started facing towards Mecca. So
and Mecca,
they changed, and now they face towards Mecca.
and which direction is Mecca from here?
So
Well, it depends where you are, which direction it is.
From here, it's still
So-
east. All right, okay, whatever. Just bringing in a little bit of commercial entertainment. Okay, from his lack of preference, otherwise, we see the Rashbashis agrees that the Shekhinah is manifest in all directions equally. So there's no inherently preferred direction for prayer. The Gemara now quotes a different view. Rabbi Abba, who Amar Shekhinah b'Marav. Rabbi Abba says that the Shekhinah is in the west. Now, this is contrary to what we said. Damar Rabbi Abba says, my Orya. What's the etymology of the word Orya? He's going to bring it from word Orya, which means east. Avirya, it comes from 2 words, Avirya, the air of God. Since the Shekhinah is in the west, the east is the open air before the Shekhinah. Interesting. Okay, the Gemara now returns to the discussion of winds, quoting a homiletical interpretation of the following pasuk. Let me just pull it up, which is, I paid the $100 to get my hyperlink. Yaraf kamatar lechi tizal katal imrasi. May my teachings drop like the rain, may my utterances flow like the dew, and then etc., like storm winds upon vegetation, like raindrops upon blades of grass. It's a good thing I spent the $100 to. Now I could pull up Sukkah. Right. Rabbi Yehuda said, "My dechsiv, what's the meaning of that? It's written, Yaraf kamatar lechi, let my teaching drip like rain." And again, pay attention to the word Yaraf, because it sound like Amkshay Aref, stubborn neck, right? Zoruach ma'aravis, sheba me'arfo shel olam. This is the western wind, which comes from the back, from the neck of the world. All of a sudden, the world has a back. All right. Rabbi Yehuda continues his exposition of the verse. Tizal katalim rasi, let my winds distill. Let my winds let my winds distill tizal like the dew, zuruch's funnest. This is the word tizal referring to the northern wind. Shemazela says hazahav, which devalues the worth of gold by destroying the crops and bring famine, thereby forcing people to spread money freely on food. All right. So the northern wind dries up all the crops. So it's in scant supply. So when you go to the supermarket, they'd have to pay much more. And like inflation, they pay like eggs at $12. So the crops there used to be $1 is $50. So it's as if the gold is worth nothing, and that's what it means by it devalues mazelas es hazahav. All right, hazalim zav mikis, those who spend gold freely from the purse. They're spending it freely because it's like no value to it. All right, kishirim alei desha, like the wind sirim which blow the vegetation. Zurach mizrachis. This refers to the east wind. Shemesa eres as kol ha'olam kisaya, which turns up the entire world like a demon. The final phase of the words ucharvivim alei esef, and like showers revivim upon the grasses. Zuruach Deramis, which refers to the south wind. Shimala revivim u'magedelas asabim, which brings up the showers and causes grasses to grow and can also bring monsoons. Right. So it's not here, we said that earlier, or referred to it earlier. The Gemara quotes a brisa concerning the path of the sun. Okay. Whoops, it just jumped back. Hold on a second. Previous. Now we're going to get into meteorology that is not science the way we know it. So it means whatever it means. All right. Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, I know, but when I get there, it jumps to the next page. Hold on, so I don't do that again. Bear with me a moment. Okay, Tanya. We learned in the Brisa, Rabbi Elazar says, Olam, the world, all right, top of Chaf Hey Amabej, La'achsadra Hudome. It resembles a pavilion. Pavilion, in this case, is think of the old baseball parks that had three sides to it and one side open. All right, in that's enclosed on three sides and open on the fourth. All right, Baruch's furnace and the north side is not enclosed. The Cheban Shegia Chama Eta Karen Maravis furnace. And when the sun reaches the northwest corner of the world, all right, Michpepes, it turns about for Ola Lamala Min Arakia and ascends above the heaven, and then like takes a back door where it travels back to the east to come back in the morning, rises in the morning. Now, obviously, that's not, we know the rotation, this and that, but there must be something more deep or Kabbalistic to this, and I'm not going to go into it because I have no idea. All right. Rav Shua says, Olam Kuba, Hudome. The world resembles a tent, which is enclosed on all four sides. Baruch's furnace, Mesabeves, and the northern side is also enclosed. The Cheven Shchava, Magas, the Karen, Maravis furnace. When north sun reaches the northwest corner of the world, Makefas v'chazeres achorai kippah. It continues to the circle and passes behind the dome of the sky. As I said, this is nothing the way we understand science. For one thing, you look in the sun. The sun is always in the southern hemisphere. It never enters, goes beyond the line to come into the north. So how it can go to a northwest corner, I don't understand. But I don't understand any of this. Maybe that's why Rabbi Smith asked me as a doctor and someone who learns science to do this, just to remind me that no matter what we think, whatever it says in the Torah and the Gemara, this is correct, even if we don't understand it, and it happens to mean something else.
That's the reason.
That's the reason. Okay. Yeah. Nothing with the fact that nobody else volunteers. Shenema, with that I'm what do you call it? Retired. I have more time. Shenema, as the verse states regarding the sun's path, and if the sun travels towards the south and it circles to the north, and it travels toward the south during the day. When the sun traverses, I just said that the southern part of the sky, and circles to the north during the night. I don't know. Okay, Sabev halach haruach. It goes around, circling, traversing the directions of the horizon. V'asavivosov shav haruach, and in its circlings, it retracts the directions. Elo pnei mizrach pnei marav. This section of the verse refers to the eastern face and the western face of the horizon. Shepamim misabavtan. Got it. All right. For sometimes the sun circles, then when it passes behind them during the night and winter, upamim mahal lachtan. To have a sofa, he's going to correct me in every shvanach, anything I'm going to say. Sometimes it traverses them. It's a good thing. You can't correct me on Kri and Ksiv. My Kri is the way I say it. I'm sorry. You can correct me on the Ksiv. When it passes over them during the day in the summer. Huya Omer, he would say, it's calling in the Brisa, the Gemara interrupts its quotation of the Brisa to identify the author of the statement, because it didn't say, us and the Rabbi Eliezer. This brings us back to Rabbi Eliezer. The Brisa resumes. What is the meaning of the verse which states, Minacheder Tavos Sufa, from the inner chamber comes the whirlwind, Zu Ruach Dramis. This refers to the south wind, which comes from the innermost region of the world. And from the dispersed parts, the cold, Zu Ruach Tzfanis. This refers to the north wind, which comes from the open side of the world. See, it doesn't say it comes from the Arctic, it just says it comes from the open side of the world. The Brisa continues with an exposition of the next verse, Nishmas El Yitain Korach, from the breath of Hashem gives ice. Zuruch Maravis. This refers to the west wind. Rochav Mayim B'mutza, and an expanse of water in a torrent. All right, Zuruch Mizrachis. This refers to the east wind. Again, this is what states in the Gemara. The Gemara points out a contradiction between the Bryce and the statement made by Rav Yehuda. Hold on. But did the master Rabbi Yehuda not say Ruach Drumis Mala Ravivin Umagadelis or something? That it is the south wind that brings up the showers and causes the grasses to grow, while this writer says that it's the east wind that brings rain. Did you find something in the commentary that you want to share?
All the diagrams.
Oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of diagrams in Art Scroll, and I wasn't sure what they were, but I think it's just diagrams explaining what we've been reading. The Gemara answers, Lo Kasha, this is not a difficulty. This statement of Rabbi Yehuda, the Isam Mitra B'nichusa, refers to when the rains come gently. The gentle, that is, the normal rains come from the south and cause the grasses to grow. This price refers V'shfichusa, refers to when the rains come in torrents. As the verse states, the east winds brings torrents of rain. The Gemara continues its discussion. Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda said, "My dechtiv, what is the meaning of what is said? Mitafan zav? Yes, from the north the gold will come. Zoruach tzfonish mazelas zav. We mentioned before. This refers to north wind with the values of gold because it ends up destroying the crops. The chenu amir. So it states in another verse, which applies the word zau, to spending gold in this manner, azalim zahav mikis, those who spend gold freely from the purse. That's a repeat of what we said before. Mara quotes another statement about winds. Amar Rafram, Papa, Amar Rav Chisda. Boy, I'm running out of gas here. Rafram Papa said in the name Rav Chisda, Miyam Shechar Beis Hamikdash, from the day the temple was destroyed, Lo hukshama ruach drumis. The south wind has not been filled with rain. Shenema, as the verse states, Vayigzo al yamin v'ra'eh. He decrees on the right, and there is hunger. Vayacho al small v'lo sabeo, and consumes on the left, and they will not be satisfied. L'chsiv, and yet is written, tzafin v'yamin atam brosim. And yet it says another verse, north and south, you created them. We see from the latter verse that the right can refer to the south. Accordingly, we may interpret the earlier verse to mean he, meaning Hashem, decreed regarding the south that there will be hunger. Because in the aftermath of the exile, the south wind will no longer bring the beneficial rains. Right? Gemara brings a new statement. It's going to quote the statement by the same Amara. The second statement. V'amar Rafram Papa. Amar Rav Chisda. Rafram Papa said the name of Rav Chisda. Miyam Shechar Beis Hamikdash, from the day the temple was destroyed and the Jews went into exile, and Hagasham Yordin Yelcher Tov. The rains have not descended from Hashem's good storehouse, meaning truly blessed and bountiful rains, they've ceased to fall. Shenamah, as the verse states, in regard to the blessings God promises to bestow on the land of Israel, Yiftach Hashem L'chatzoro Hatav, God will open, the pasuk says, God will open up for you his good storehouses. And the verse continues to give you rain for your land. Thus, Rafram deduces, Bismanch Yisrael Asim Ritzano Shemakom. When Bnei Yisrael was doing what Hashem wants, then Hashem gives us this Yisrael Shriyan Alay Masam, that people of Israel are present in the land. The rains descend from the good storehouse. Yisrael Shriyan Alay Masam. However, in times when the people of Israel are not present in their land, but are in exile, and the rains do not descend from the good storehouse. And this observation was made and written by Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain. He wrote in something, I don't know what you call it. He wrote about Israel when he visited, that when the Jews are there, the land is beautiful and green and this and that. And when the Jews are exiled from the land, it's nothing but a desert. You can look it up. All right. So, I mean, there's an outside verification of what's written in the Gemara. Not that we need it, but it's nice to see it. Okay, the Gemara now returns to a topic discussed above. That is the direction one should face during prayer. All right, this is important. Let me get through this. Amar Rav Yitzchak, if one wants, again, we're facing east, but if you want to become smart, you should face south. And if you want to become wealthy, then you should daven facing north. And you're mnemonic for this rule so that you won't confuse it. Shulchan b'tzafon, menorah b'daram. In the base of Mikdash, the shulchan, the table with the breads, was in the north. All right, the menorah b'daram, and the table and the menorah is on the south. All right, and obviously the bread is it symbolizes money, and the menorah symbolizes light or wisdom. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, "Li'olam yajib." You know what? You should always face south. So, like if in our synagogue, if you're anywhere left to the where the rabbi stands, you should be kind of facing the bima and the drop towards the rabbi. All right, if you're on the other side of the rabbi, towards the corner, because that way you'll be going a little bit southeast. All right, why you said and this is why you got to keep on learning, my Talmidim, because if you learn, then you become rich. So the source of actually, you know what? I don't, it's interesting that it says that, but the money we make is really based on what Hashem wants to give us and the keli we make. But we have to be zocha. So you want to be zocha, you have to learn. That's how I'm understanding it personally. All right, Shnemo. So from the pasuk that says the length of days, long life is in the Torah's right hand, and its left hand a wealth and honor. The Gemara points out a contradiction by Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar Shechina b'marav. So now we're going back to what we mentioned earlier. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said that Shechina is in the west. So why are we talking about now davening to the east? All right, even though we gave an answer before that he's in the west, but the air is in the east, and then we said that all the kochavim, the stars and the moon and the sun, the heavenly bodies all come and end up in west towards the Shekhinah. Said if the Shekhinah's in west implies one must face west while davening. How then can Rabbi Yeshua advise praying to the south? The Gemara answers the mitzadei atstudei. Rabbi Yeshua's advice that one should turn somewhat towards the south side, that is, praying in somewhat southwesterly direction rather than due west. So no matter what, it seems that if you pray to the south, so if you're on a table in shul, and your table, if you stand up, faces south, all right, that you shouldn't necessarily make a 90-degree left turn and face east, because if you face south, you kind of cover all days, and if you shuckle a little like this, so then you got a little east, a little west, except you're not supposed to shuckle like this, you're supposed to shuckle like this. We learned that previously. Anyway, the Gemara relates another statement regarding the direction one should face when praying. Amar lei Rab Chanina Rav Ashi. Rav Chanina said to Rav Ashi, who lived in Babylon, in Babel, Kigan Otun, the Yaspitu, Bitzvana, the Eretz Yisrael. People such as yourself, who live to the north of Eretz Yisrael in Babel, Adrume, they're supposed to face east, south, and pray towards Jerusalem and the Holy Temple. Let me ask you, Moshe, when you were in South Africa, you prayed north, right? Okay, so you always prayed towards Yerushalayim. Right? The Gemara asked, the Babel, it's from the Eretz Yisrael, Kaima. And where do you know the Babylon is north of Eretz Yisrael? And when you look at the map, it's actually east of Eretz Yisrael. It happens to be northeast, all right? But so he says, we're going to bring a pasuk, mitzafan tipatach hara al koish fe'aretz. Out of the north, the evil shall open and come forth upon all the inhabitants of the land. Where are we up to? Let me just make it up to the Mishnah. Machikin is a Mishra Mina Yorek. One must distance flax pulled from the vegetables, brewed that earlier, leeks from onions, mustard plants from bees of his neighbor. Rav Yossi permits in the case of the mustard plants. We said that. The Gemara quotes a brisa that explains Rav Yossi's dissenting opinion. Tana Rav Yossi Mata Bachado. Rav Yossi permits planting it close to neighbor's property in the case of mustard plants, low, because one owner can say the other, listen, I'm waiting till you move your mustard plants from my bees, and the other guy will say, oh yeah, you move your bees from my mustard plant. Who eat, because the bees come to the flowers on the mustard plants, and that's a problem, and then they get that smell or whatever it is, and the honey. Thus, the owner of the mustard plants has no great obligation to remove his plants, and does the owner of the bees to remove his bees, and neither can evict the other. We're up to a new Mishnah. Let's stop here, because basically I'm exhausted. All right.
Rennie, thank you very much. For
Rabbi,
both days.
please come back. Make sure you have a flight to come back. Can you shut this off, please?
Send the private jet for him.
Thank you very much.
Send the
Good day. Good day.
Okay, yeah.